Hey, Mert.
Hey. Well, I guess nobody's watching.
Well, these cookies. Oh, jeez. Coconut and chocolate.
How's your coffee?
It's good, but I can use some more. Oh, thank you. We're kind of moving slow today. I just got up. Gotta have coffee. That's the only thing that gets me going. Do you have coffee running through your veins? I know you do.
I think I have half the pot gone already. With Jim here, it's always a 2-pot day, sometimes a 3-pot day. I made a trip out to the vehicle yesterday and brought in some more supplies. Now I think this is, well, I know it's a Friday. I think it's March 4th. And it means that we have today and tomorrow. And we're going to head home on Sunday morning. So, 2 days to play, Jim. We got food to use up. Nobody's watching. Eat what we want.
I'm going to have to go on a diet when I get home.
We got the Canada Jays outside munching down on our chicken carcass from a few days ago. We had company yesterday, had the snow dog out a little bit. Pulled Jenny in and out like that saved her some miles of walking, and she was glad of that. When people want to walk in from the west entrance, 3 miles in, they were late getting here, and I told Jim that, most people that come in from that way never make it. They get about halfway or more, and they just run out of time because they know that if they get here, they got to get back out again before dark. So, anyway, we had a really good visit with Nick and Jenny, and
3 miles doesn't seem like a long way, but you double that. Like you say, you come in, depending what time you get here, but you've got to go back out. Depending on the weather, that's a rough hike in there.
And I thought the trail was packed pretty good, but they were certain areas in there was a little soft. They'd call it, Jenny called it post holding, and that's when you put your foot down and it just keeps right on going, and then you topple off into the snowdrift, which we wouldn't know anything about, would we, Jim? No. It never happens to us. Never. But,
so, hey, what is it, about 8 degrees out or 7?
It's climbing fast. It was around 0 Fahrenheit all night. A little bit overcast today, first time of that. So,
stars last night were pretty. I go out a couple times, man. That sky was black and those stars were just shining. You almost forget living in a city what it's like out here like this when the stars are showing. There's trillions of them.
No light pollution whatsoever. Somebody asked me, Jim, how we met.
Oh.
And I know it goes back a long time.
Anywhere, Marty, I'm 71 years old, man.
Well, I was doing some calculating a few minutes ago, and I think we met when we were probably 28.
That could be.
Because 1980, and we'd had that farmhouse out here about 30 miles away. We'd had that for a year, and we decided that we wanted to come up and see what it was like in the wintertime. And so, a friend of ours, he was in that bear video I did a long time ago, Jeff, and another buddy, we just called him Dirty Dick, and we won't get into those stories, but Dirty Dick was a great guy. And Vonnie and I, we drove up, and we were staying at the farmhouse, and I knew that Hawk and Jim had a camping trip planned up into the Boundary Waters over the time, and Hawk and I had it made up that, well, if you guys decide that you want to come over, I gave him a phone number to call a neighbor, just come over to our place. So, what happened, Jim?
Well, from what I remember, the trip started out good. Matter of fact, Bob Lund was with us. and we were going to go up off the Gunflint Trail and ski in and camp, winter camping. And we got up there when it was dark, so we slept on the North Shore one night, and we got up in the morning and we headed back in. And yeah, we had the whole refrigerator with us. We had everything. We had too much stuff. Anyway, we skied in, and it got so cold that night that one of us just stayed up keeping the fires going.
What's so cold?
The weather.
How cold?
40 below.
That's what I recall. It was at the farmhouse too. It was 40 below in that period of time.
It was 40 below zero. And the funny part about it, I remember coming out. That's not the funny part, but experience. We had to light a fire under Gary's oil van just to get the van to turn over. So we had a stove under, and it was heating underneath this van, the oil pan, in order for the thing to turn over. And we left it there for about half an hour, and it finally turned over.
Well, people have asked how we get vehicles started, and now that we're retired, we wait till it warms up. But in a case like that, you go up there in the middle of the winter, you're out in the middle of nowhere. It's 40 below zero at night, probably 25 below zero in the daytime, and back in 1980, those engines did not want to turn over. Big V8s with thick oil, they would just grunt if you didn't get them warmed up.
Well, I remember out here having to do the same thing on a couple trips, lighting the oil. Actually, we got in off the Gustafson, took our little Peak 1s or whatever we're using for stoves at the time, put them up underneath the oil pan. You had to be careful because you didn't want to start a fire.
Yes.
Just to get the van to start. Yeah, those were cold days back then.
So go ahead.
I remember we were camping on one of the trails. And some guy out there had a dog sled team, and we're camping right in the trail. We hear this barking, and all of a sudden here comes all these dogs and a guy on a sled behind him. But those were fun days back then.
Well, I remember we were there at the farmhouse, Dirty Dick, Bonnie, Jeff, and I, sitting around the nice warm wood stove, and Mark from down the road came down and kind of laughing, and he said he'd gotten this phone call out of the blue for a message for me, and he said, Hawk called, he said they were in Eli,
yeah.
and they'd be coming over. And I don't think he realized how far it was going to be. He said they'd be there in 2 hours. And I said, well, there's no way they're going to be here in 2 hours. So we're going to bed, but about 3 o'clock in the morning, this yellow van comes rumbling in. And I woke up and here are these guys, Bobby, Jim, and Hawk. And that's the first time I think it was the first time I'd ever met Jim. And they come in, and 3 in the morning, I had a bed made up for them where they could sack out till morning, and then so they got up. They came in, and I think that our crew took off after a couple days, but Hawk and Jim and Bobby, they stuck around a little while. They kind of enjoyed that nice wood stove after trying to camp out in the boot. I mean, camping at 40 below zero, you can sleep out at 40 below zero, but getting up and fixing breakfast, that's where it gets tough. So
it was cold. Man, it was cold.
So then what happened was the farmhouse was so popular, and we loved it. It was nice having that wood stove. And so every winter, a trip or two, the crew of us, we were always different people, but we were coming up and spending time. And then on one of those trips, I was out adventuring with somebody out here, out in the forest, and I come up this old trail, and you know the story. I came on this old log cabin. And so then we started using it more, and Jim and Hawk, they were back here that first night. And then that was in probably 1986. And we've been here at the cabin ever since.
Yep, I've always heard Gary always talk about Marty Kehoe, and he says, who the heck is Marty Kehoe? It's a good friend of Gary's. Turned out to be a good friend of mine too. And definitely had some good time back here at the farmhouse. We had some good times. I remember many times driving up by myself and spending the nights up there. And then coming back up in here, this has been a great friendship and a great, it's a great place to run away. I remember when I was working on a department, coming back here and just getting away from the hustle and bustle and the life of a police officer trying to control crime. I mean, coming back up in here and just letting it go. It has been good times.
Yeah, for mine, I'd be at I worked in an auto plant, and it might be I did different jobs all the time in a labor pool, so some days you had it easy, some days you really worked hard. And some of those nasty jobs I was on, I'd be thinking about, someday I'm just going to go back to that cabin and be able to spend more time. So that was my mental escape on a bad night in the assembly line, was thinking about this old cabin sitting back here just waiting for me.
And I still, I have a doctor's appointment or something, and I was mentioned to you earlier, where I'm sitting there and says, wow, man, it's Dr. Slade or Slow or what have you, and I just go to my phone and bring up some YouTube videos of the cabin. I'll be sitting there looking at him and laughing, and people kind of looking over at me. But it's good, man. It's all good. I like that.
With Nick being out here, that was Nick's first time to the cabin yesterday, and I haven't added all the names up yesterday, but we're getting really close to tripping over the number 300 of the different people who have been out to this cabin since we've had it in our possession. We keep them all in the logbook up there. I know there's some that don't sign in, but it's such a special place and it's so hard to get to. But to have 300 different people having stopped in here, and that's just individual people. That's not counting the ones that came back time after time because they like it so much. Some of the people in the area know about it now, and they're like, if they have guests up, they say, here, I got to show you something. And they'll bring them back here just to show them a real old cabin in the woods. And that makes it fun for us, and everybody gets to enjoy it.
Nick yesterday was calling this the magical cabin.
Magical cabin, that's right.
Magical cabin. He's a good kid. He'll be back here again. I like to get him back here sleeping some night to really get the experience. And then we can have some of Walleye Don's walleye back here.
Yeah.
He's a good guy.
And Nick was so excited to get here that Jenny is his grandma. And when he got here, I said, well, first I thought his grandpa was bringing him out. But no, Grandpa said he didn't think he could make it. So Grandma brought him out. And I said, well, where's Grandma? And he left her back in the trail. I said, how far back is he, suppose? He says, I think he's out by where it says a half a mile to go, maybe. So I had the snow dog already warmed up, and I put an extra sled in the back, and I went out and found her, and she was so happy to get a ride the last half mile. And then when our trip ended up, that's when I was able to get her about 2 miles before the snow dog wouldn't go where we didn't have the trail prepped enough. But anyway, kind of saved her bacon, I think, because it was 6 miles in on that punchy snow. It's more than what you would have bargained for, but she was bound determined to get Nick out here. He so looked forward to it. So
yeah, it was good to have them out here yesterday. It's kind of funny. We go out here for how many days? Been out here 8 or 9 days now. It'd be kind of nice to see somebody different.
Yeah.
And then it was nice to have them come out. So it's beautiful out here.
We were hoping that. The goal was I wanted Nick to be feeding some birds out of his hand, and we set him up out there, and the birds were they were staying away. And I thought, what? It's odd. What's odd? And then I realized he had this big fur hat on thing, and I said, I think they think you got an animal on top of your head. I think and anyway, even if he took the hat off after that, I think they were just leery about him because it was just odd the way they avoided him. But I think the fur hat did him in.
It did. I mean, it could have been an animal they didn't know.
Well, I can see from a bird's perspective, they sitting there, and there's a bobcat sitting on top of that guy's head.
Well, I was standing next to Nick to show him how to feed the birds, and I had food in my hand. They'd come to me, but they just wouldn't go to poor old Nick.
Yeah. That was too bad.
You want more coffee?
I'm okay for now, Jim. Thanks. I brought in more yesterday, though. Where we could have.
I know you did.
We could have 4 pots a day and be okay for our 2 days that we have left.
It's fun to fill your coffee cup in the morning when you get up, walk out that door, and just kind of meander halfway down some of these trails. And it's just not everybody's made to do what we do or enjoy what we enjoy. But those that haven't experienced this, it's so unsurreal. I mean, it's so neat out here. It's a surreal country and beautiful, fresh air. Listen to the birds and just meander and meander.
People wonder what we do out here, and we're out doing a lot of activities, but you got to realize that we do spend a lot of time, even though we don't film it, we spend a lot of time around the wood stove and the coffee pot, especially early in the morning as the temperatures are starting to come up and we're starting to wake up. So,
and late at night.
Oh, late at night, yeah, we sit around. Usually, I lay down, I might work on a crossword puzzle, and Jim sits here, just sitting by the wood stove, maybe reading.
All the lights off, and just thinking what you did for the day, and listening to the noises of the cabin. I mean, it's the workings of a cabin.
It's not all stomping the trails and splitting wood and messing around outside. This old cabin is a pretty neat place to hang out in.
Yeah, it's too bad not everybody can experience this. I know a lot of people can't, but they should all know it's just beautiful.
So that's our story.
Yeah, Marty turned out to be an okay guy. We've been on a lot of camping trips together and spent, I don't know how many hours you put together that we've been out here, but we've had a good time. Good friend.
A lot of Canadian canoe trips and
those canoe trips are fun.